You know those chilling stories, right? The ones told around a campfire or whispered at a sleepover. Stories about monsters and madmen lurking just out of sight. But what if the scariest part of the story wasn't the fiction, but the real-life fact that started it all? Well, today we're going to dive into that unsettling world and find that razor-thin line between folklore and reality. Just listen to this. April 22nd, 1987. A 52-year-old woman named Ruthie Mae McCoy makes this absolutely terrifying 911 call from her Chicago apartment. The dispatcher on the other end, well, they probably thought she was just confused. I mean, who breaks in through a bathroom mirror? It sounds impossible.
But she wasn't confused at all. 2 days go by, and police find her body. And the investigation, it revealed something horrifying. Her killers had come in through the wall behind her medicine cabinet, which connected to an empty apartment next door. Exactly like she said. Her terrifying true story would become one of the real-life inspirations for the horror classic Candyman.
Yeah, Ruthie's story is just a stark reminder that sometimes the absolute scariest stories are the ones that actually happened. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to pull back the curtain on some of the most famous urban legends and uncover the shocking real events that gave them life. So what exactly is an urban legend? It's not just some spooky story. Think of it more like modern folklore. It's a story that taps into our collective anxieties, our shared fears. And more often than not, it starts as a kind of echo. An echo of a real crime, a bizarre event, or some forgotten tragedy that's been warped by time. All right, let's start with a true classic. A legend that has probably been told at every slumber party for the last, 50 years? It plays on one of our most basic fears, being unsafe in a place you're supposed to be safe.
You know this one, right? A babysitter. She's all alone in this big, unfamiliar house. Then the phone rings. It's this creepy voice, asking, "Have you checked the children?" over and over. Finally, she calls the cops. They trace the call, and then they call her back, completely panicked, with that unforgettable line, "The calls are coming from inside the house." It is a masterclass in building dread. But is that all it is? Just a creepy story? Or is there something more to it? This is where things get really interesting, and honestly, a lot darker. And here is where we separate the story from the awful truth. The legend, it's a neat, tidy thriller. You've got a clear threat and the police trace the call, there's a resolution. But the reality? It's about a desperate, real call for help that couldn't be traced. It's about an unsolved murder, a call that came way, way too late. See, this is the story that's widely believed to be the inspiration. Back in 1950, a 13-year-old named Janett Christman was babysitting when an attacker broke in. She actually managed to get to the phone and call for help, but the operator who picked up just heard muffled screaming before the line went dead. They couldn't trace calls back then, not in time. When the parents got home, they found Janett. Her murder has never been solved. That failed call for help from inside the house, well, that became the seed of a legend we're still telling today. Okay, so let's move from a threat inside the home to a monster lurking right beneath our feet. This next legend is about as iconic as the city it comes from. I mean, the story's just fantastic, isn't it? People on vacation bring back these cute little baby gators as pets. But then the pets get big, they're not so cute anymore, and boom, down the toilet they go. But they don't die. Oh no, they adapt. They live on rats, and they grow into this huge subterranean colony of monsters. It sounds completely ridiculous. Well, as it turns out, the truth is actually a lot weirder and a lot more plausible than you might think. Now, there isn't a mutated alligator king ruling a sewer kingdom, but this legend didn't just appear out of nowhere. Okay, so first things first, the whole pet alligator part, 100% true. Back in the 1930s, this wasn't even weird. For $1.50, just $1.50, you could order a live baby alligator right out of a magazine ad. So yeah, the city was crawling with these things. And here is the kicker. What happened when those pets got too big to handle? Well, in February of 1935, a bunch of teenagers in Harlem found out. They were shoveling snow and saw something moving under a sewer grate. They pulled out a nearly 8-foot-long alligator. It was even in the New York Times. And that one single documented event is what gave this legend its powerful bite of reality. So, let's be super clear. Experts all agree that the cold, toxic sewers of New York could never support a breeding population of alligators. That part's pure myth. But the core idea, alligators in the city, that's a fact. Animal control still has to rescue abandoned pet gators in New York City every single year.
All right, for our final case, we're looking at something a little different. A story that was used for years to scare kids into behaving, until the day the boogeyman stepped out of the shadows and became horrifyingly real.
On Staten Island, the local boogeyman was Cropsey. Every town has one, right? Theirs was supposedly an escaped patient from the notorious Willowbrook Asylum, a monster with an axe who lived in the tunnels and snatched kids who got too close to the woods. For years and years, it was just a story.
And then, kids on Staten Island actually started to go missing. And when you look at the overlap, it is absolutely bone-chilling. The legend was about an escaped patient from Willowbrook. The reality was a man named Andre Rand, who was a former employee there. The legend said Cropsey lived in the tunnels, Rand lived in the woods surrounding the asylum. The legend said he snatched children. Andre Rand kidnapped and killed them. The myth had become a terrifyingly accurate blueprint for a real-life monster.
The facts are just grim. Andre Rand was convicted for kidnapping 2 separate children, and he remains the prime suspect in several more disappearances. He was the real boogeyman of Staten Island. The local horror story had come to life.
So, from a desperate call from inside the house to a monster in the woods, it's pretty clear that the line between our folklore and hard fact can be unbelievably, terrifyingly thin.
These stories stick around for a reason, you know? They're not just stories. They're containers for our most primal fears. The Babysitter story taps into our fear of intrusion, of being unsafe at home. The Alligators play on our fear of the unknown lurking just beneath the surface. And Cropsey, that's maybe the scariest of all. The fear of what people are truly capable of.
And that really is the biggest takeaway here. We tell the legends because they're thrilling, they're scary, they're memorable. But it's the real stories, the real victims like Janett Christman and the children of Staten Island that we have a responsibility to remember. Their truths are so much more important than our fictions.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other truths are hiding just behind the stories we tell in the dark? What legends have you heard that you think might be real? Let us know in the comments.
If you found this dive into the dark side of folklore as fascinating as I did, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation. Thanks so much for watching.